It's a cliche to say it, but I think it's true. He was the heart and soul of the Sun-Times. He's one of those iconic figures like Mike Royko, Ann Landers, Irv Kupcinet, and he was really the last. He didn't think of himself that way, of course. I always think that he really wanted to regard himself as just like a regular guy from Urbana, and he's very much a child of the Midwest.
Typically after nighttime screenings, he would come back and write his reviews right in the features department in his cramped little office, crammed full of movie posters and everything else. But he would always take time to stop as he breezed through the city room, and he would tell the nightside crew jokes. Roger was a great joke teller, and his jokes were very much like his reviews. They were funny, they were witty, they were clever. That's the way Roger was. Roger never forgot that he was a Sun-Timesman, basically.
I would often find myself at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Friday night, and some famous Hollywood director or actor would die, and I would say, I've got to call Roger. And I'd call Roger Ebert at 3 o'clock in the morning, and he'd always pick up the phone, and I'd say, this person just died, can you write something? And he'd say, what's your deadline? I'd say 4 o'clock. And within 40 minutes, before that crazy deadline, I would get 500 words of perfection from Roger. And if you didn't call Roger, he'd say, why didn't you call me? I would say, it's 3:30 in the morning. He said, call me.
I like to remember him going to the screening room at Lake Street. He had this ritual. He'd sit in the back seat on the very far left margin. No one was allowed to sit in front of him. That was Roger's spot, and everyone knew not to touch the chair or get into his sidelines.
He was so passionate about film and filmmakers and up-and-coming filmmakers, a lot who may never have gotten press anywhere, would get press from Roger.
There was a waitress at Smith & Wolinski who did a movie called Vincent, A Life in Color, about a street person. And I found out about it because I knew the street person, and I saw the movie, I thought it was great, and I asked Roger if he would review it. And he not only reviewed it, but he had it made sure it was shown for 2 weeks at the Gene Siskel Center, which is the only time it was ever shown. And so here was a man who loved films and was a champion of good films. He didn't care who did them. He was a critic of bad films. He didn't care who did them either.
I first knew Roger as an idol of mine. I was a teenager in Wisconsin watching PBS and saw he and Gene Siskel review movies and was awed and was so excited to see that movies could be talked about in such a populist way that piqued my interest, even in films I ordinarily wouldn't have cared about.
I remember reading his columns as a teenager. I would read his columns before I would see a movie. That's how I would determine whether or not I'd go see a movie based on what Roger said about the movie. I did edit a column of his once, and it was actually dealing with politics. It was a column dealing with a debate between Romney and Obama. I thought to myself, boy, here it is. This is Roger Ebert's column. This is this guy that I grew up idolizing, and it was a great experience.
She was the love of his life. She was his rock in illness. She helped him do his business. She helped every aspect of his life. And you cannot talk enough about how he loved her and what a great relationship they had, and how he didn't marry her till he was 50, and he was so happy that later in his life that he found this true love in Chaz, and they were an inseparable couple. It was a wonderful love story. And I think that he would want someone to say that because he felt it deeply, obviously. I believe sincerely that someday his career after he became ill, these past 11 years, will be seen as important, if not more important, than his movie work, because he really showed how a person who was gravely ill, who was disfigured, could interact with the world through the computer, could speak through technology. And I think it was an extraordinary performance of courage and grace and skill on his part. I would have been howling in a corner somewhere. And I think most people would have. He's an extraordinary individual. It was an honor to know him, and his death is a shock.
It's a cliche, but really movies won't be as much fun anymore. I personally don't think there'll ever be, a movie critic with the same reach, the same beautiful writing style, the same legendary status as Roger Ebert. He was one of a kind.
It's just a very sad day for us here at the Sun-Times. I think it's a sad day for the film industry. I think they've lost one of their greatest, if not their greatest, champion.
You feel like a member of the family has died, and things will never be the same. But yet, knowing Roger, I know he would want us to celebrate his life and try to keep a positive attitude, look ahead, and the best for the future.
You know, he never lost it. He was always, to the end, he had the enthusiasm of a kid, like a kid at the carnival. I'll miss him.